In today's video, we're going to be working on this 1/14 scale beast. It's being built to withstand 200 pounds of payload capacity. Yes, you heard correctly, 200 pounds of payload capacity. In this video, we're going to be tackling a lot of things. We're going to be finishing the flatbed, installing the electronics. We're going to be putting the smokestacks on, and we're also going to be filling the tires with epoxy. We got lots to do, so let's jump right into it. We're going to start off by making some smokestacks for the truck out of this square tube. So I made this bar that you see clamped on here. It's just to space out the stacks so they look about right on the truck. All right, so here's what it looks like with the stacks. I think it looks pretty killer. Now it's time to move on to making a headache rack for this thing. Headache rack in 3, 2, 1, go. And just like that, the headache rack is done. Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to making the back of the flatbed. Back of the flatbed is done. It's time to move on to installing the rest of the electronics. Remember, in the previous videos, we already installed the drive motor and the steering servo. If you missed the video where I installed the servo and the drive motor, be sure to go down to the description box below. I've got links to all the other build videos there. You can also click on the channel and it'll take you to the playlist where I have all these build videos, and you can scroll through and see which video you want to watch and click on it and watch it. Alright, so these are all the electronics I'm using here. I've got a Spectrum remote and receiver. This is the biggest battery I'm going to be running in this thing. This is important because, as you know, this is our electronics box and everything has to fit, even with the biggest battery that you have. So I've got that, and then I've got this ESC that I bought off eBay. It'll work just fine. One important thing we're gonna have to remember is that I have to drill a hole for the receiver wire to go out of this box. With it being all metal, if the receiver wire is inside the box, when I close it up, I'll get no signal. So this is how I decided to place my electronics. Basically, I need to paint this box first, but then what I'm gonna do is take some double-sided tape and tape the receiver and the ESC down, and then of course the battery is removable. I'm going to also have a hole drilled in the front of the box here. That's going to be for the servo and drive motor wire. The receiver wire is more than likely going to be coming out of a hole in the front of the box. Just one other note here, since this is sheet metal, I'm going to have some kind of rubber insulator around the sharp edges of the holes to keep these wires good. So for now, we've done everything we can with the electronics until I paint this box. We got our holes drilled and we know where our electronics and battery are going to be sitting in the box. Before I can paint the box, or the rest of the truck for that matter, there's a handful of other things that need to be put together before I can paint. So one of those things is I need to weld some supports onto the bottom of the box so I can mount the box to the frame of the truck. So I'm going to do that now, and then we're also going to go ahead and drill and tap the holes for the flat. I got cut off there, but we're going to drill and tap the holes for the flatbed so it's completely solidly mounted to the truck. Okay, the box is done. Time to drill and tap holes for the flatbed. So before I drill this, I just wanted to show you guys what I've got going on here. So you can see there's lots of clamps. Got one on each side there. I've spaced the flatbed back far enough so that I can have my lid off and that it can slip down between the box and the flatbed itself. That way it makes it easier to open it up and also get the battery in and out. As you can see, I drilled and tapped the holes to mount the flatbed to the chassis of the truck. I also put a little wood screw in these pieces of wood, and that's just to kind of hold those in place. All right, so the flatbed is done. It's time to move on to installing and making the pins. So I'm working on making these pins for the truck, and I just wanted to show you guys that I basically designed this truck so that everything can come apart. Every pivot point has a pin that's removable. So for example, on the cantilevers, these pins are removable, and I can grease them when I need to or remove them if I have to do service to something else. The important point I wanted to make to you guys is that everything is removable and serviceable, which is a very important and good thing to have and to be able to do. Back to making the pins. And it's pretty simple really. You can see I drill a hole so that a smaller pin will fit in the bigger pin, and then basically I'm gonna weld a washer onto the other side. It's gonna be the same basic thing even for these longer pins for the swing arms. I have the K pin in one side, and then I have the washer welded on the other side. So I've talked a little bit about filling these tires with epoxy in the previous videos, and now it's finally time to get it done. We tested the epoxy to see how rubbery it was and how it dried without oxygen. It passed the test, so we're gonna use it. One thing that I learned from the experiment though is that the epoxy actually gets really, really hot when you have a bunch of it mixed together all at one time. So because the epoxy gets hot, what it's gonna do is make the tire rubbery. So we don't want the truck sitting on the tire. We don't want any of the weight from the truck sitting on the tire because it can cause the tire to deform a little bit from the weight since it will be so hot. And obviously we don't want that. So I've got the truck all blocked up at both ends. I've got 2 holes drilled in the tire. One is a bigger hole that will fit the nozzle on this, and then one's a smaller hole to let the air out as the epoxy goes into the tire. Let's jump right into it. I'm gonna get these tires filled with epoxy, and I'll be back when I'm done. All right, so the epoxy's in all the tires except for one of them. This tire has epoxy in it. As you can see, it's really nice and firm. That's exactly what we want. And this is a tire without epoxy, so I'm pretty happy with the results. All right, guys, so that's gonna be it for today's video. We got a lot done. There's not much else to do to the truck, so look forward to a run video. Also, don't forget, all the other build videos will be down below in the description box, so be sure to go and check those out if you haven't seen them all. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.